How can agencies work with pharma companies on preparing them for this future brand experience? And what do you sort of envision that to look like?
I think healthcare is gonna come into 2.0. Let me explain what I mean. So web, right? Web, there was when the web first arrived, no one called it web 1.0 because it was the first thing, but it was just sort of this one-way street. And then web 2.0 was like, oh, we can have open comment fields, and it began to be a two-way conversation, right? And that was web 2.0. And now we're in web 3.0 with blockchain and decentralization and cloud-based stuff. But I think healthcare is still stuck in 1.0, right? And this is, again, sort of the rigidity of it all. So I think, right, brands just talk. Again, we're so scared to ask questions and receive input or to have a true two-way conversation that we, by and large, are closed off to that. So it's really a one-way conversation. We're talking to patients versus connecting with them. So I think the experience of the future is things like real-time surveys. Like we talk about real-world evidence, but I think, if I'm on a brand new therapy, right, I should be able to, like, on hour one, how is it working for me? Day one, how's it working for me? Week two, how's it working for me? And when it's not working good, to be able to communicate back to both doctor and brand writ large, So I think the two-way conversation is really what we as consumers expect from our other brands and are readily going to get. I think the brands that understand that are going to win in the market ultimately. I think there's a lot of commoditization. Like, right, you look at some of the bigger markets, diabetes, it's flooded with tons of brands, right? And so the differentiation between those brands, the clinical differentiation is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so what's really going to separate them is, do I feel like this brand is showing up and solving a real problem for me, listening to me, and do I have the channels or the mechanisms to communicate back to that brand? Now, right, if a patient today talks about an adverse event, right, there's all these, you have to, and the brand hears about it, the brand has to report that up into the FDA. You have to catalog that, and we're so afraid of that. Again, I think things like Gen AI are going to be able to aggregate that readily for us, and we won't have to be so skittish about hearing some of the bad news as well as the good news. It's just the reality of healthcare. I think that's, like, it's so stilted. Healthcare communication is so stilted. It's like you're talking to, a stranger almost, right? And you're in your, it's arms folded and you're prim and proper. And I think that's just not, people, health, there's nothing more personal than health. And so the brands that allow people to show up and scream when they're mad and celebrate when they're happy, and the brand supports them in all of that, those are the brands that are going to win, in my opinion.
And so, what excites you most about where the future is headed in this area?
Um, I think the authenticity, like, I do just think, right, it's funny because, the easy place to take a swing at healthcare advertising is like, oh, everyone's always walking on a beach, like, happy as a clam. I'm the first guy that loves, I live on the beach. It's like, that's not an unrealistic thing to want to do because you're healthy and you want to go. But the way we portray it is just as fake can be, right? So it's like, our product, when you think about it, really is the human body, right? And so this is what I want to see our product really experiencing the brand, right? In good ways and bad ways. So the authenticity. It's like, right? It's like no one gets mad at car companies for showing the car because you understand, like, they're selling the car, right? In many ways, what we are selling is that emotion, that feeling of being healthy. So what excites me the most is to actually show that in a real way, and to allow people to express it. And it's not always going to be perfect, right? Sometimes they're going to be mad because sometimes the dose they took tastes awful or what have you. But I think, if enough people complain about the taste of something and then it's actually going to get changed, right? The manufacturer will go back and fix that problem. So I just think the authenticity, the actual listening to patients and building experiences so we can listen to patients and physicians for that matter, right? If every time they prescribe something that something's just really not going well, other than them just choosing to prescribe something else, like giving them also channels to communicate back to the brand. So that's, real talk. That's what I think the future holds.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Yes, thanks for having me.